Yo, what's up there, guys? How's it going? Hope you guys have been well. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie, also known as Driveway Built 460. If you guys are running multiple accessories like ditch lights, light bars, front bumper lights, chase lights, air compressors, rock lights, how are you guys running that system? Are you guys running multiple wires, multiple switches with tons of relays? Or are you guys doing it the smart way and getting yourself a switch panel? Alright guys, so in today's episode, we are going to be installing the Auxbeam KS-80 Switch Panel onto my Lexus GX460. We're going to use this and upgrade the current switch panel that I have in my GX and switch it over to the brand new KS-80 from Auxbeam. Quick disclaimer, Auxbeam did send out this unit to me. This is one of their newest switch panel on the market, and I've just been gracious enough to test and try this out so I can show you guys, my audience, just more options for the market, because there's a plethora of different types that's out there, but I believe Auxbeam is one of the standard in today's overland market in terms of switch panels. So instead of running a bunch of switches all over your dash, this system, like most others, lets you control everything from one compact panel. So today I'll show you what comes in the kit, how to install it with a step-by-step instruction, how to wire accessories to it, and finally we'll test everything to make sure it works. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and unbox the KS-80. I am trying out a new, I guess this is more of a POV, right? So point of view. I have a new to me DJI Action 4 that I'm using for this, and so far I'm enjoying it. This gives you guys a different perspective. Instead of me putting a camera right directly to it, you guys get to see a point of view. So in front of us we have obviously our pamphlet, talks about warranties, and of course our stickers that we can stick onto the panel itself. Well, these over here, and of course you have an Auxbeam sticker over here. Back over here we have the 8-gang switch panel itself. There's the back side and of course the front side. So this is pretty tactile buttons. Very nice. And then we have the control module. This is basically the brain right here. So let's open up this, and there you have it. Very organized the way how it is. All the fuses are all lined up right there. Your power and your ground, ACC 4-pin and external trigger. We'll talk about this in a moment, and we'll go over what this does, which I think is a pretty cool and unique feature. Of course, your power wire, accessory wires, ground wire, a bunch of zip ties, wire that goes to the switch panel itself, and then some accessories, hardware. Looks like it's going to be the ACC connection, which it is. It tells you right there. Extra fuses, fuse puller, a bracket to mount your panel. Looks like a double-sided tape you can also mount your panel onto, whichever ways you want to do it. These are mounts that I ordered on Etsy. So I had the guy who makes these, I had given him the measurements for my panel here, and he specifically 3D printed the mounting points here to make it fit this, so I can be able to mount this into the cabin of my GX. So shout out to that guy. I'll give his information as far as links down in the description. And then we also have the breaker. And then right behind here you have the bracket for the control module itself, and of course more brackets. So this is what I currently have in my GX. It's a Auxbeam knockoff. It has been serving me well for the past several years now. I've had no issues with it. Obviously you can click on the buttons here. This turns everything on, and it works super well. On or off, turns off the whole entire light system. But the only thing that really lacks between this is you have to use the included app that you download. So if you want a strobe, if you want to do SOS and change all of that, you can't use the main switch panel for that. So that's limitations with this one. But other than that, it's been very reliable. And if you guys are interested, I'll leave the link down below for this switch panel in the description. So we're going to go ahead and take this one out and upgrade this to the Auxbeam KS-80, so it's going to sit in this spot and replace this one from the GX. Alright, so let's open the hood, and if we come over here, we have our battery, and then of course down right over here is our control module. So we're going to replace this module, remove all the wires from here, and then get it ready for the Auxbeam KS-80 to be placed right here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all this, and then we're going to start the install basically from scratch. Alright guys, update. So the original control box that was here has been successfully removed. So now it's just an empty space in the engine bay. So it's right here. So what I'm going to do is grab my bracket, and then I'm going to thread this right on through. And this is going to be my base for my bracket. Quick update. So I was trying to use the brackets that, or these plates that I've had that was just leftover scrap metal, and it's not working out. So I'm going to ditch this idea, at least for the main mounting bracket for the control box, and switch that to this other piece that I had that was just laying around. This seems to be much more sturdier, I guess, in a sense. Not that it needs that much structure, but I want to have something that's going to keep it from moving just back and forth, especially when I'm driving or when I go off-road. So I drilled some new holes, as you guys can tell, into that, because this is where the new bracket's going to mount onto. So let me show you guys what that's going to look like. So it'll be just like this. So imagine it looking like this. So the mounting holes lines up right here. And then once I get that mounted, this is what it's going to look like. Just like that. Right. So let's go ahead and get this situated. This should be a much more stronger to keep everything in place, keep this from moving back and forth. So let's go ahead and get this mounted onto fender back here. All right, so here is our newly acquired setup. So again, the much longer brackets down over here, and it looks like it's good to go. Everything is mounted on, including the circuit breaker. So now I just have to mount this onto the fender here. So we'll move the wires here out of the way, put this bolt right on through here. Don't over torque this. So that looks pretty good there. It kind of wobbles a little bit, but I'm not going to see that. I technically could grab another bracket and make one where I can keep it more balanced and more stable down here and just mount it back over here, but I don't think that's going to be an issue because I'm not going to really see it. Because once this gets mounted on, so I'm not going to shake too much. All right, I think that's a win for me. So we're going to just mount the hardwares to keep this control box in place. Then we'll get everything wired up. So place the hardware right down here. Take off my fuse cover. Give me a little more room to squeeze my arm through here because it's a little bit tight. All right, so the control box is in. I'm not gonna lie, it does kind of vibrate a little bit too much. So I may do something about this, but for now, at least it works. All right, so first line of order, I'm going to mount the power cable. So Auxbeam gives you two different sizes of cables, two different lengths. Here's a short one and here's a long one. So we're gonna put the long one on first. So I'm gonna route this one right over here. So this is gonna go straight and direct to the battery. And then the short cable, this one's gonna run to the back of the circuit breaker down over here, under the box, and then back up and over, and then hook up right here into this positive terminal here on the control box. And right on through. Twist this guy back around, thread it back in place. And then of course we'll hook up the other cables. We have our ACC, our 4-pin, and also the external trigger. And then over here, is looks like an antenna, which I don't think I have. I think this is meant for the wireless remote, but I could be wrong. But there's a little coax section here, so I'm gonna keep this covered. So here is my cover. I gotta make sure that it has these cutouts here, right along here. So these cutouts have to match this. So this will be a little bit tight. I may have to make a little notch right there. Alright, so at this point in time, we are plugging in our ground. We're just gonna work our way into putting in one wire at a time, hooking things up. Alright, so that one's good to go. And then we will hook up the negative and positive cable last, because we don't want to have this get hooked up and run power to it, live power to it, and touch wires, and we don't want that to happen. Blow fuses, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'll start hooking up these a little bit last. So we have our ACC, our 4-pin, to our switch panel itself. The external trigger, I don't think I'm going to run this. So how this works is you can actually plug this into your hazard lights. You can plug this into your reverse lights, your brake lights, and also your headlights. So this is the external trigger. I may use this down the line, but I'm not going to use it now, so I'm not going to show or indicate how this is going to work. So I'm going to skip this process altogether. I'll put a video up on the screen so you guys can see how that's being played out. But we're going to skip this step here. Alright, so I'm also going to run now the ACC. So I'm going to use the already existing one that comes from my other switch panel. This also works the same way. So I'm going to just bring this back down over here, run this over to the side, and just plug it right into this port here. It's a 2-pin, so it just plugs right in. Alright, in my ACC, where I'm choosing to plug it into in terms of the fuse, I took off the fuse cover. So this is the line that goes into it. So this line runs from over here, back over, and then back to the module box itself, to the control box itself. On the back of the panel here, I am using, let's see here, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's going to be the 10 amp ING fuse I'm tapping into right there. So which is basically this one here. I took off the fuse from that slot here, tapped it back into this wire coupler here, put this back into its place, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so focusing our attention back over to our circuits over here, we have 0, and I'll explain what this is. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 8. So we have 8 circuits we can tap into, and they all have their own individual fuse that we can tap into. So this purple or blue one here, which is 0, this function is pretty cool. So before, with the other switch panel that I had to tap into one of these circuits here and then press onto the button to turn on my DRLs. So this one here is a specifically designed dedicated spot for your DRLs. So if you guys have pods that has a DRL function and feature, this is specifically for that purpose. So when you turn on the vehicle, they turn on automatically once you have this hooked up. You don't have to put this into a separate circuit, which is very unique. That actually will free up a circuit that you can use for something else, which I think that's a pretty nifty idea. One thing I do want to note is that you guys can see how they're all clearly labeled, right? So 1 through 8. On the switch panel itself, it's also indicated on the panel. So 1, 2, 3, and through 8. That's, in my opinion, really, really nifty, because then if you're not quite sure which one you're wiring in terms of the accessory goes, well, you plug it into 1, and that's exactly where it's going to go, right into 1. With this Auxbeam KS-80, it takes the guessing game just out of the works. Just make it much more easier for you to get everything set up for you without having to deal with the headaches. Okay guys, so it looks like I got most of my wiring all hooked up and they're good to go. But for now, let's go ahead and connect the 4-pin wire harness. This is going to be the one that's going to go back into the switch panel itself. So it's a 4-pin. I think what I want to do is run this wire back on over through here, and then hook it up over there, right back here. But okay, I think that's it. I might switch some of these fuses out to a 30 amp, just in case. I don't want to have too much amp drawing and then blowing fuses left and right. So, much better. Might be a little bit hard for you guys to see, but I'm gonna reach my magnetic pickup tool down here. This is the back of the firewall. We're gonna run that 4-pin wire right through here, through the firewall, back into the cabin, and then back up to its new location in the cabin. So for this next step, I'm gonna work on getting the Auxbeam switch panel wired through the firewall. So I'm just gonna basically tape this as neat and close as I can, because this is what I'm gonna use to fish this through that grommet. So we are in the footwell. If you guys take a look right back over here, it's a little bit dark in this area, but here is the cable right here. So we're gonna just pull this cable back and cross my fingers that we just pull that cable right on through. Alright, so off camera I was able to pull this through. I just had to apply my other hand on that grommet and just apply some pressure. Once I did, I was able to pull the cable through. So now that we've got our cable through, what I'm going to do next is start removing trim panels. So starting off from this section here, I'm going to more likely pull off this weather stripping here, pull off the A-pillar stuff that's over here, and I'm going to snake everything over. I'm going to bring my wires right behind the airbag over here, and then we'll start by going up here, and then we'll fish the line up across the headliner, and then going to remove this map light here so we can access the wires once we push it on through the headliner, back on through, and then we'll place it back up here for the last step. Alright, so let's see here. So if you have your trusty pry tool with you guys, you just basically find a spot that you can just wiggle this through and then just start prying, and it's just all held on by clips, and it will come right off just like so. And then this piece here just will come right out. Nothing's really holding on to it, so that was pretty easy. I'm gonna just slightly, let's see here, we're gonna take this piece here off too. Pull that out. And the molding here, you can just lightly pull it back, and there you have it. That way you can run the wires right up through here, right behind this, so it makes it nice and concealed. And we'll take off this piece of the A-pillar next. Alright guys, moving on to the A-pillar. So I got a 5mm hex bolt I gotta take off. And back over here, once I take off this, again, use your trim panel piece here. There's a 12mm bolt right there. Indeed, it is a 10mm. The handle comes off right after, just like that. For the A-pillar here, if you guys are concerned about getting this dirty, make sure you guys have clean fingers. Mine are kind of clean, but grab your same pry tool, just bring it back down over here. It's a little pull, and this just comes right out, like so. So now we're ready to run the wires from back over here to the side, back up the A-pillar behind the airbag, because like I mentioned earlier, here's the airbag. What you don't want to do is wrap the wire to go around the airbag and then back over here, because if you have to have an emergency and your airbags deploy while you have the wire there, it's going to cause all sorts of trouble. So do this at your own caution. Make sure that you absolutely place the wire right behind here, the airbag, and not in front of the airbag. So again, at your own caution. Not saying that I am a professional by any means, but I think it just makes logical sense to put it behind here and not in front of the airbag. Alright, so next we're going to work on removing my old switch panel here. We're going to take this guy right off from its location. But man, I had the hardest time trying to take this map dome light out. I started taking off trim pieces after trim pieces, the lens covers here to find a bolt, and there was nothing that was there. Even taking this off for the sunglass visor, doing lots of researches online, and there was just nothing that was there. And so I just started to pick on it at one point, and I finally got it to work. So the trick is, there are hooks behind here towards the back the hook's right behind the headliner here, so you can't pull from here. Right back over here towards the front, there's clips back over here. So if you grab your pry tool and just pull this down and then pull it forward, it'll release the clips back over here so you can take this off safely. So let me show you guys that. All right, so what you want to do is just kind of get your pry tool, right? And just kind of pull this down just some, so that we can kind of get this prepped and ready to pull this out. Go down towards the bottom over here, towards the front, and just reach it back inside and just pull it down from each corner, and then it comes right off. Unclip, and then pull forward, and out comes the dome light. And then from this point, I can be able to take off my switch panel off from this spot here on the headliner. Just comes right off, see? And then now we can disconnect the connection here. Just screws on, pull this off, and that comes off. And we'll leave everything the way it is so we can get ready for the new one. Alright, so let's go ahead and find a route that I can bring this. I'm just kind of eyeballing things. And there we go. And I'm going to pull the slack. And I'm going to just pull enough wires to where I can make a full connection to my switch panel. Whatever's going to be the excess, I'm going to just use a zip tie and bundle the rest and keep them back towards the engine bay. So now we can pull this back, and again we have part of the trim here all the way out. So here's the airbag. Again, do not run this in front of the airbag. Alright, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but the cable is right behind here. It's kind of hard doing this with one hand. I think I got it. Okay, so there we go. So again, it's all going behind the airbag, not in front of the airbag. I'll just pull this down just a slight bit so I can push this right on through. Alright, so we have that now, it's through. Might be a little bit hard for you guys to see, but there is the cable right there. I just gotta grab it. Alright, there we go. Easy as pie. Alright, so here's the KS-80 switch panel. We're gonna get the mounts ready. So I was kind of messing with it earlier. The long side goes on top of the headliner. This goes right below where the dome light is. So the holes, they line up perfectly with this. Shout out again to the guy who made this. So again, we're gonna use our included hardware that Auxbeam provides. Alright, so let me just cinch it up a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Alright, so first thing is first, let's go ahead and screw this end on. There should be an arrow, which there is. Don't know if you guys can see that, but there is an arrow right there. And then you just put the two together. Once you have it and it's in, cinch on this cap and then you're done. Alright, so bottom hooks go on first, and then you can bring this up on top. A little bit difficult. Alright, there we go. Cool. Might be hard to see, but the hook should be hooked right behind here. You should feel it just snap right into place, which it did. Alright, so at this point I'm just going to do some cleaning up, putting things back in their respective spots. So let's see here, push this back up. Cool. Alright, and let's just tuck the wires. If you're not comfortable putting your fingers back over this section here, use your trim tool to push everything on back. Trim piece cover here, and that just goes on like that. Cool. We're done with that part. Yeah, so that looks good. Okay. Behind here, and just put this back to its spot. Can't forget this guy. Whoops. There we go. Holy turd. Okay, so I put everything together, and I'm going against my rule of thumb is to test it out before I even put everything back together again. But I'm pretty confident that I got everything done because most of the wiring is done back over at the control box. So let's go ahead and crank it up, see if it turns on, and we can do some fine tuning with my KS-80. Alright guys, so our battery connections are all set to go. I guess at this point, let's just go ahead and see if it turns on. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn the car on. And check that out, we got power. So everything is working on the Auxbeam, so we're good to go. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and see if the lights all work. Let's see, I don't know what these are yet, so I have to get this all set up after the fact. I don't think 8 has anything that's there, so alright. We have power to the Auxbeam now. We can go ahead and start labeling the circuits here. I have in front of me a whole list of things that I can put on, so give me a moment so I can put this back on. Ladies and gentlemen, the product is finished. This is the final look of the KS-80. So we have our front grille side, which is my ditch lights, the front DRLs, amber, the roof lights, and the rear chase lights. And what's nice is you have a blank spot you can use a label for, just to keep this covered, because without this cover being here, you're gonna have just light coming out that's gonna leak out from this section here. But we're gonna go ahead and talk about the toggle, strobe, chase, bright, backlit, and the mode. And lastly, we'll talk about this knob and what it does. Let's go ahead and turn all the lights on. Our front, our grille, our ditch lights, our amber lights in the front bumper, our roof lights, and then our, well, you can't see it, but chase lights are already on, but we have that. So we have our toggle, strobe, chase, bright, backlit, and also mode. So lights are all back off for now. Well, the toggle button, it's just basically your one-touch all lights. So instead of you going through every single one of these buttons here to turn them on manually, you can hit toggle, and that turns everything on automatically for you. So to go back and turn them all back off, click on that. So that's what the toggle button does, turns everything on for you with one touch. And then we'll talk about our strobe. It's just the way how it sounds, right? So you click this button right here, and that makes them strobe. Now what's nice about this is you can customize this. So this little button over here, that allows you to actually change the frequency of how fast they go. So right now it's on the lowest setting. If I crank this over to the right, you'll see they flicker much more intense. Turn it back down, and that slows the pulse down. And you can do that for any one of these circuits, depending on what you want to do for that. So that's what the strobe function is. And let's talk about the chase. So what happens is you turn on your lights here, and what this does is going to go into a bit of a sequence. So if I hit on chase, and you'll see them just going to rotate through all the pods. And again, this button here, this knob here, you can change how quickly and how fast you want that sequence to go. And of course, if you want to dial it back, you can dial it back. So that's our chase function right there. And then we have our bright. So this bright button here, it's pretty unique. So say we have our front lights on, our grille, our side lights, and our roof lights and our front lights. You hit this button here for brights, and let's say it's too bright for you and you want to dim it down. You can turn this knob over here to the left, and if you check it out, the lights stay dimmed. And if it's not bright enough for you, go back over and just turn it back over to the right and crank up that knob to increase the light intensity. So how awesome is that? So that's going to be the bright function. Next up is going to be our backlit. This is going to be the backlit controls for our KS-80. You hit this button over here to turn it on, and you can actually make this bright or dim depending on what you need. So if it's too dark for you, you can always bring it back up and make it more brighter. And if it's too bright for your eyes are light photosensitive, you can turn this back down or off. Now say I want to change the colors from the orange to something else. Again, the backlit about this, just click it twice. And it'll flash, and you can be able to change the colors to whichever ones you want just using this knob. So I'm gonna find one that works well. I like that super white kind of color. So maybe there's not a super white. But we'll keep it on this blue right there. You just let it 10 seconds and it'll just automatically keep your settings and keep it there. In our mode, if we click on this, everything will start flashing for you. You can change how each one does what, so that means you can change and set the preference to what you prefer. So let's say you want to have the roof lights or the rear or the chase lights, you want them to do a strobe effect. Click on mode again, and now it's going to be on strobe effect. We can keep that right there. And let's say you want to keep one as a chase, let's say the amber here. Now we have a blue. And let's say you want to do the side ones also as a chase. Now we have it set. Click on mode again, and that saves your settings for you. So if I hit rear, see how it's right there where it's on chase light now? The front amber's gonna be on that chase mode, and so is my side. But that right there, guys, is the mode feature. So you can customize this however you want to fit your needs. But once you guys figure out your settings, you leave it the way it is and you forget it. You can also use the downloaded app that I believe Auxbeam does provide for you, and you can use the app to help control the switch panel here, to just directly from your phone. And I know that Auxbeam does also make a radio remote control for the KS-80, which is sold separately with the unit. But I think for what I use for my switch panel here, this is more than enough for my needs. So shout out to Auxbeam for making such an awesome switch panel. This thing looks perfectly and pristine in my GX. But alright guys, so this is the KS-80. What do you guys think about the new switch panel, the new upgrade? I think it looks pretty killer. And plus all the features that are packed into this, you can't beat this. It's so much more nicer of an upgrade to the one I had before in my GX. Alright, so we are wrapping things up. Overall, the Auxbeam KS-80 was a super simple, a very simple way to just manage vehicle accessories without cluttering your dash with a bunch of like switches. Installation was pretty straightforward, and it makes it easy for future upgrades that I can add on to the GX down the line. But I do want to give a quick shout out to Auxbeam for sending out their unit for me to test out and try out. But man, if you guys enjoy mods, upgrades, going outdoors, off-roading, this is the channel for you guys. But if you guys have enjoyed the video, just make sure you guys leave a like. Comment down below what you guys like about the install, or maybe even about the switch itself. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next adventure. Peace out, guys.